All right, we are back with another episode of High and Tight in the Dugout, another special episode with college coaches. And joining me today is Sam Roberts, the head coach at VMI, Virginia Military Institute. And we are ready to go with another episode.
Okay, let's do this thing.
Coach, how are you?
Doing great, man. We got a little snow here, but everything seems to be going well. Excited for the guys to get back here in a few days. So yeah.
Yeah. So when do guys get back on campus?
For us, they'll get back on Sunday. So and then we'll start up right after that. I think all the snow will be cleared by then. We got a nice turf field and all that, and so yeah, we should be able to hit the ground running this winter to springboard us into the spring. So yeah.
So, Coach, we've kind of known each other for quite a little bit. Not, I guess, rival high schools. Dinwiddie and Prince George, a rivalry as old as time. And both programs ended up producing some pretty good players along the way. Just give me a little bit of background about kind of where you're from and your path to where you're at now.
Yeah, so like you said, I'm from Prince George High School. My dad was the longtime head baseball coach there. So like you said, I grew up watching Dinwiddie, Prince George, all the really good teams in the Richmond area play. Ton of, like I say, really good players and all of that. So when I was growing up, baseball was, obviously what I wanted to do. And I knew whenever baseball quit me, I'd want to, kind of transition into the coaching side of it. And so again, kind of when I was going through high school, I had an older brother. He's an assistant coach at James Madison right now. And he was headed up to VMI to catch there. So I knew I wanted to play with him. And then, so he was, again, a junior when I was a freshman in college. Got to play together a year. He ended up getting drafted by the Brewers. So again, that was only 1 year that we got to play together, but made it a little bit easier on my parents, in terms of, being able to watch us both in college baseball and all of that together and all that. And so, ended up playing here for 4 years, was a shortstop pitcher here, got drafted as a shortstop, played 4 years. And then they figured out I couldn't hit and transitioned to a pitcher for 2. Ended up getting released. Like I said earlier, knew I wanted to get into coaching and had the opportunity to come back to VMI and started my coaching career shortly after. So, yeah.
Was figuring out that you wanted to get into coaching ever an option with Dad's background and pedigree?
Yeah, I mean, I knew I wanted to, obviously when you're growing up, you think you're going to be in the big leagues for forever. It didn't kind of end up like that for me. I just knew I wanted to play for as long as I could. And then whenever that was done with, I knew I wanted to coach. He was such a, influence on me, and I just, saw how he impacted kids and players that he, played for him and knew, okay, whenever this thing is done with me playing, I want to get back into it and hopefully impact kids in a positive manner and all that stuff and get them to the big leagues. So, yeah, I mean, it was, an absolute no-brainer for me to get into coaching. Was super excited, super fortunate the timing worked out. VMI was looking for an assistant coach, and it just worked out perfectly for me. So, yeah.
Now, it's been a pretty long history of, I feel like it's a pretty long history, at least back to the early 2000s, of Prince George Royals. I hate to plug the rival school. But there's a long history of Prince George Royals going to the VMI program and having some success with guys like yourself and Mike and Jacoby.
I think Brandon Massenberg was probably the first guy that kind of went to VMI.
BMass.
Yeah.
Dude, I love BMass. There was probably he was arguably the most hated player in the Central District in high school because if you know BMass, my guy talked and talked and talked and talked.
Oh yeah.
And let's see who else. Obviously, the most recent, Justin
Yeah.
Stark.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
We've
pretty
had
long line of successful VMI players to come out of that Prince George program.
yeah. Yeah,
Let's
so we
go
had
ahead.
obviously we had a ton of good baseball players, but we also probably had one of the better basketball players ever come to VMI. We had a guy, Reggie Williams, who
Reggie Williams.
country and score in 2 years while he was here at VMI and ended up playing in the NBA for a number of years and all of that. And so we had a ton of good ties to VMI, started by Brandon Massenberg, and then, like you said, Jacoby Fields. My brother came here. I ended up coming here. We've had a number of different guys that have come here since. Justin Stark had a tremendous career here and all of that. And so it's just been a really good opportunity, not only to go to a school where we could, for the most part, most of those guys played early in their careers, but also, most of those guys are taken care of in life after baseball, like I was saying earlier. And so, it's really helped us, as we kind of transition through life and all of that stuff. And so, yeah.
Now, kind of that makes an easy transition into the next question. Obviously, it's a very unique setup at VMI. Some people are, aware that it is a military school. Some people aren't. Some people know the ins and outs. What would you say are some of the biggest benefits of being, a VMI student athlete, and then life after?
Yeah, I mean, I think this school does a tremendous job of preparing you for life after college athletics. And I think too many times, guys, choose a school, have a tremendous career athletically, but are not really prepared for, the regular work. And this school does a tremendous job of instilling the discipline, the time management skills that every employer is looking for. And again, I think, with the school, it's the third smallest Division I school in the country. So you're going to have about 11 students in each class. And so they're going to know who you are, where you're from, if you gave up 10 runs in your inning pitched, or if you went complete game shutout. And so, it's just a unique learning experience. And I think that really helps our guys when they leave VMI. And so, again, obviously the alumni network, they understand, the rigors and all the things that you have to go through at VMI. And so, they always, again, look out for each other. We have a 98% job thing 6 months after graduating. So again, it's one of those things where we can kind of pretty much guarantee guys jobs after, their graduation and all that stuff. And so, so it's a really good experience. So, yeah.
And tremendous upgrade in facilities, as you see there behind you, with the turf field and everything that y'all have done for the program. Any other new ads, I guess, that you would want to plug to the facility program?
Yeah. So again, obviously, we were fortunate enough. We had a guy that graduated in the mid '80s, Mike Lamore, who did a tremendous job of kind of making the turf facility happen for us here recently. It was a little over a $3 million project. Again, a ton of people had their hand in it in terms of, getting this thing all put together and all that stuff. We also got TrackMan. We're looking to get an iPitch machine here shortly. And then we're going to get a portable TrackMan as well. And so those are the things that kind of, help us, with the player development side that I think is so important nowadays. And so, we're super excited about that.
Yeah, we always, I don't want to say always, but sometimes we get the post-event. I don't know if that velo's right. He's usually here, he's usually there. And I'm like, it's like, TrackMan is like the best measuring tool, in the world in terms of data and velocity and all those things. And it's the same things that, VMI uses. It's the same things. You watch pro games, and down in the bullpen, they have a portable TrackMan unit set up behind the catcher. Like, it's the same thing that they use. I'm pretty sure it's accurate, but
Yeah.
all right. Now, kind of the inside of the baseball program, if you will. Obviously, I
Right.
like to run. Led the country in stolen bases. What, 2 years ago?
The last 2 years, last
2 years.
year and then the year prior. So yeah.
Okay,
so,
so y'all like to run. I know you always enjoy a left-handed pitcher. But what would you say are some attributes or some key things that maybe fit a Keydet player?
Yeah, so positionally, like you said, man, we've led the country both years that I've been the head coach here. That's just something that we're gonna be uber aggressive on the base pass. That's kind of fits. Again, you coached against my dad. That's kind of what they did. They run a lot. It just fits the school and all that. So there's, if there's two main things that I would, positionally that we would look for, it would be athleticism first and foremost. If a guy doesn't run really fast, he's probably not going to have a great chance to fit our system that we run. And then the plate discipline side of it. So controlling the strike zone as a hitter. And so those are the two main things that we value offensively. I just think with the athleticism piece, will not only be able to affect you offensively, but also on the defensive side of the ball, the range in which we hopefully can get them to play defensively with. And then pitching side of it, like you said, we love left-handed arms. More importantly, we love guys that, pound the strike zone. And I know that's obviously a thing that, most schools are looking for, but that's something that if it's a decision between a guy with more stuff and a guy with more command, we're probably going to take the guy with more command. So that's kind of, what we believe in. I feel really confident in our pitching coach and then our strength and conditioning program to kind of get guys stronger and hopefully get them to move more efficiently on the mound. And hopefully the velocity will come as they kind of get older and all of that, while maintaining the command and the pitchability and all that stuff. But again, that's the main things that we look for when we're out recruiting and all of that stuff. So yeah.
Now, obviously, everybody thinks you got to go to X school and Y school and Z school. You got to go to all these Power Fours and everything else in order to get drafted and, fulfill your big league dream and this, that, and the other. And it's more of a baseball decision than necessarily always a life or school decision. Who are some of the guys? Obviously, y'all have had some success in getting some guys drafted. Most recently, Will Riley, James River, Midlothian alum. Right. Shout out to Donnie, his travel coach. We got to give Donnie a shout out on here. But who are some other guys? I know that it's been a pretty good success rate lately of getting guys drafted, and probably even more so, the percentage of getting guys drafted to those guys getting actually to the big leagues has been pretty high. So who are some of those guys that kind of stand out?
Yeah, so we had two guys get drafted last year. Like you said, Will Riley, he was a James River kid, had never really pitched a ton prior to getting here. We recruited him as an infielder. He got here and he struggled significantly as an infielder and really could not hit a slider. And I feel fine saying that because I think he would sit there and laugh at me. But got here, couldn't do anything. Had some arm strength. Put him on the mound. His first bullpen on the mound was 80 to 82. And then he slowly progressed and ended up being, a pretty high draft pick by the Mariners. And then also we had another kid, Holden Wilkerson, out of Cave Spring High School in Roanoke, that came here, and really progressed during his time here. It was unfortunate he went down with an injury during last year, probably 3 or 4 weeks into the season. So he kind of ended up being a lower draft pick than probably what he would have been if he would have stayed healthy. But again, I'm excited to watch those guys kind of go through their journeys in professional baseball. I think both of those guys have tremendous opportunities to make it as big leaguers. I really do. And they were guys that were really lightly recruited, and all of that. And so, but yeah, like you said, we've had quite a few big leaguers. We have Josh Winder. He's with the Minnesota Twins. He's a free agent right now, but he's been with the Twins the last few years. He's from James River High School. Nathan Eden, you probably coached against him in high school. He's been with the Kansas City Royals. Reed Garrett was, pitching all the time in the big leagues in the playoffs this past fall with the Mets. He's a Mills Godwin kid. And so we have another guy, Zach Kent. He's been on and off the 40-man roster with a couple of different organizations. So hopefully he'll get an opportunity here shortly to kind of, get to the big leagues and hopefully stick. But he's a right-handed arm as well. And so, but all those guys, for the most part, were guys that, understood that, when they got here, they put a priority on playing early in their college careers. That's something that we could do for them. They kind of learned through their failures for most of them early on, with the exception of Josh Winder. He kind of was, pretty productive as soon as he stepped foot here. But the other guys kind of worked through some, the things that didn't really fall their way. They learned how to deal with failure and all that stuff. So again, it's just the opportunities that we were able to provide for them, the value that we put on high school recruiting instead of transfer recruiting and all of that stuff. And again, they were able to come here, work through it, and ultimately get drafted and, go through some failures in professional baseball and ultimately for the majority of them have made it. And so yeah.
And, I think that's credit, to you and your staff, and obviously Coach Hadra was there before you, and you were with Coach Hadra. The emphasis on development, and the fact that y'all are landing kids who maybe, like you said, weren't heavily recruited other places that kind of fit what y'all were looking for, and you saw something there. And I don't want to say took that chance, but brought the player in and kind of got everything out of them. I had an opportunity to play against and coached against some pretty good players while I was at Dinwiddie or Matoaka when I was coaching some. I had opportunity to coach against Jackie Bradley. I guess were you around the same time as you were on the same time as Jackie?
Yeah. So we were. He was a year younger than me. So yeah.
Had opportunity to, be around and see a lot of those players. I'm not going to lie, Coach.
Yeah.
Nate Eaton may be the best or the most dynamic, or definitely one of the most dynamic high school players that I've ever had an opportunity to see. Just in the fact of how he affected the game, every single inning when he was on the field. I remember, and it's funny, I coached him when he was, I don't know even know if Nate remembers this. I coached him when he was probably 14 or something like that. He was super young. Kevin's dad, correct?
Yeah.
And Kevin had him playing up on a team that Coach Haynes and we're rolling out some old names here. Coach Haynes and I were coaching. It was like a 17-year-old team. And he was 14 or 15, and he was playing up. And he was undersized. He wasn't as athletic, wasn't as strong as everybody. He just went out there and competed. And I had to coach against him at Dinwiddie, and when he was at Dale, and man, that dude just flat out played.
Yeah. I watched his progression through high school as well, and just in the falls and stuff like that when I was done, for the off season and all that stuff. And like you said, he was a guy that was undersized, and super one super aggressive and super competitive. I don't think there's many guys as competitive as that guy was. And as he kind of grew and got stronger, the athleticism piece, really took off. And then he just became, like you said, a dynamic player that can play all around the field, can pitch, can play the infield, can play the outfield. That dude's just a ball player. And again, it's a testament of him working while he was maybe a little undersized. And then obviously, as he kind of got older, he kind of grew and got more physical and all that stuff. And so, he's a tremendous player, tremendous competitor, and all of that. So, yeah.
Now, you're just setting stuff on a tee for me. You talked about high school players and y'all not being as in tune with the portal and some of those other things as maybe some other staffs are in this kind of current day and age. Everyone, maybe has, I guess, I don't know if you want to term it a misconception about how, schools or all schools aren't recruiting high school players anymore. I'm looking, we talked a little bit offline. The 2025 class has 15 players coming in out of high school. While some schools have taken a step back in terms maybe of recruiting as many high school guys, it seems like y'all have stayed right on course. Obviously that's the case, but why so? Why do you think why do y'all set that level of importance on a high school player?
Yeah, one, I think it's one of those things where there's a ton of really good high school programs in the state of Virginia. Like you said, we have 15 kids coming in next fall. All 15 are from the state of Virginia. Again, there's tremendous coaches out there, both high school wise and travel baseball wise, that are getting really good competition, that are, equipped to step in and compete early on in their college careers. But then also, it's one of those things where I look at recruiting or development as like a long-term play, and it's not, hey, let's go grab this kid, let's have him around the program for 8 to 10 months, and then let's get rid of him. Like it's more of one of those things where if we believe in his ability as a player and we're willing to take that risk on him of offering him a scholarship or a roster spot out of high school, then we're really believing in that kid's talent and really believing that we can develop that kid's talent over a 3 to 4 year period of time. And so, it's one of those things where, the thing might be to grab, a ton of transfers right now. But again, I just think there's really, really good high school players out there that, again, understand that they have to be really polished before they get to college because of how everything is currently, with the portal, with junior college baseball. So again, it's one of those things where it's almost helped us a little bit in terms of, making sure that high school athlete understands the sense of urgency that they need to, play with and try to develop with. And so, we've just had a good amount of success with, looking at it long-term wise, development wise. So, yeah.
Now, you've long been a pitching guy, and obviously, and through our talks here today and before, you've been pretty successful with them. What are, one or two or a couple things that you look for in arms now while recruiting them? You talked about command a little bit over stuff for y'all. What are some things that you look for that maybe stand out first?
Yeah. So, like I said earlier, man, just the command piece of it. That's one of the fortunate things about recruiting a lot of Virginia kids is the fact that, most of them are tied into Game Changer. So we can look at, their stats throughout the year. You guys do a tremendous job of getting video out of the high school player during the high school season. I like to look at that stuff probably more than maybe even the travel ball side of it, because I think that the kid is, being asked to go multiple innings, as opposed to, maybe on the travel ball side of like, hey, you're going to throw 1 inning or 2 innings, and we know after that you're done. That high school coach might be asking that kid, hey, like, you got to get us into the 5th or the 6th so that we can, give it to our closer or whatever. You might have to go complete game. And so I think it's kind of unfair to ask the kids, when they get here, hey, man, like, we got to get you to, go 5, 6, 7 innings if they've never really done it. And so we've tried to look into like, okay, can their command hold up throughout, 5 innings, or do they lose, command or velocity or ability to spin after an inning or two? And so, fortunately in Virginia, a lot of their stuff is put on Game Changers. So again, we look on that a ton. I understand that sometimes a kid's mom might be running it, and that stuff is, could potentially be wrong, but it at least gives us, hopefully what their average performance is. And if we understand that, then we understand that player a little bit better. Because I think the worst thing that I can do is bring a kid in, seen him for 2 or 3 times. The 2 or 3 times that I saw him, he commanded the ball because it was low pressure, low stress situations. And now he's getting to college baseball, and we're running like maniacs on the bases in the fall. And, he's not used to commanding the ball. On top of that, I think that's kind of setting that kid up for failure. So again, we try to get as much information on the pitcher as we possibly can. So command wise, that will be the first and foremost thing that, we look for when we're evaluating pitchers. But then also the athleticism piece. Like you said, we've had a number of pitchers get drafted in the past. All those kids, for the most part, were really athletic because we're looking for that kid to go from 86, 88 to 92, 94. And there has to be a strength and an athleticism piece that has to, be there in order for that. That's what we've seen guys make jumps with. Like if a guy's already physically put together out of high school, like where there's not a lot left there, and he's 84, 86, maybe you can get him up to 88, 90. But we're looking for that. I feel like 90 miles per hour nowadays is just get you in the ballpark. It doesn't really move the needle a whole lot. At the college level. Now, obviously in high school, you're like, okay, 90 miles an hour. Okay, let's go. Everybody's going to see that guy. But in college baseball, he's going to have to make that jump, like that little bit of a jump. And so the athleticism piece is something that we can, we look for when we're evaluating to see kind of like, okay, does he move, can we move him to better positions mechanically to get more power output? Can we put this guy in a strength and conditioning program for a couple of years, and can we get more power output out of that? So now we got the command piece that we check off first and foremost. If he doesn't command the ball, then he can go somewhere else basically. But if he commands the ball and doesn't throw that hard yet, then we obviously are looking, okay, what can we do to help this kid throw harder or throw better stuff and all that stuff. And then we just work to that every single day. And so, but yeah, I mean, we try to check the box of like, what we can do to help this guy. And then I think a lot of times coaches, I think the thing that I challenge our coaches with is like, figure out what you have a strength in and figure out what your weaknesses are, whether you're a pitching coach or hitting coach or whatever, and then recruit to that. So like if the recruit's weakness matches up with that, like if a pitcher's weakness is the pitching coach's weakness coaching wise, it's probably not a great fit. Now, if that weakness from that player mechanically or whatever matches up with the strength of that, pitching coach, then I think it's a tremendous fit. But I think a lot of times guys don't really look at like, okay, what can I actually coach and what can I actually teach? Because at the end of the day, we're just teachers and all of that. And so, yeah, that's kind of what I try to tell our coaches to, figure out as we kind of move forward. But those will be the two main things: command and athleticism. So yeah.
Yeah, the command piece and the stuff piece are very important. Like you talk about with Game Changer,
Yeah.
I don't think that you can't put a lot of stock, and I think you would agree with this. You can't put a lot of
Yeah.
stock into every statistical category.
For sure.
But from the command side, the strikeouts to walks in high school, like those are two things that are really hard to kind of mess up as you're inputting, the game changer stuff. I think batting average and even as far as a hitter or batting average allowed or hits given up as a pitcher, those things can be like, very different depending on who's scoring. And honestly, it can be very different who you're playing with, right? Like
right.
You may have a college pitcher that has potential to pitch in college or beyond, and everyone behind him may not. And so you have issues with giving up hits that, would be outs in college. And so I think, there's some things that like a hitter, like strikeouts in high school, like that can be something that gives you a lot of information. Whereas, maybe the batting average or even walks sometimes doesn't, just because of kind of who you're facing and stuff. But all right. During the high school season, you alluded to it a little bit. During the high school season, we're out going to games, watching players. How much are y'all following along? I think I kind of know the answer to this, but it's on the docket. So, how much are y'all following along, seeing what's going on across the state and region, in terms of players that y'all are following or currently recruiting?
Yeah. So, like I said earlier at the very beginning, I'm obviously the son of a high school coach. And so high school baseball, I just love high school baseball. And so everything that you're posting, whether it's from your account, the PBR Virginia, whether it's all the guys that help, run, PBR Virginia, we're watching that stuff. And we are super excited when you guys are tweeting, because again, we can kind of follow along not only with, what you guys are posting, but also what those recruits are telling us. Like, hey, look, and then obviously, on top of that, you got the Game Changer, where it's like, okay, obviously we get the video, get everything that you guys, post and all that stuff. Obviously we got Game Changer. We're probably for the most part following along with it. Because again, I love high school baseball, and then obviously, you got what the kid's actually saying. So like if the kid's saying, hey, look, I went 5 shutout innings, and then, Game Changer might say that he went 2 innings with 5 runs. I don't know. But, we're just kind of checking all the boxes, or as many boxes as we possibly can, with how that kid or how that team is performing and all of that stuff. And again, you guys get out there and you guys turn over every stone. That's for sure, man. You guys are finding everybody. And so you guys do a tremendous job of there ain't no secret. I tell people this all the time. There ain't no secrets in PBR Virginia, man. They're all over everything. So sometimes I wish there was more of. So
sometimes you want us to get out of there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so
no, it was funny. I guess it was last spring. I was at a game up in DC, and I saw Coach Crosby there, and expanding the footprint a little bit, getting up there in DC. But saw Coach Crosby there, and I think that was our first time talking. You and I have had plenty of conversations about players and stuff like that. But as the staff has evolved and all, gotten to know some of those guys, and Coach Crosby introduced himself, and we were talking about some players and stuff. And I had gone to a game a few weeks prior, and was watching a player, and the player didn't have a terrific day, and didn't really, you call us, like we might not have put anything out there, but that phone call or that text message, like, I'm going to be honest with y'all about what happened. And he was like, yeah, he was like, we knew that such and such was supposed to play that day. He was like, and he said, when Coach Roberts saw that there was nothing up on your thing and you were at the game, he was like, he must've had a tough day. So, like I said, I know y'all are following along a little bit, and, I think it's important. Like, yeah, we highlight like the good things, in players' performances. But at the same time, obviously the tough days are being noted. Those just aren't necessarily online conversations. And I think rightfully so. Like, I'm not going to sit there and tell a lie. Right. But I'm also not going to, out the kid for the world. But if there's a conversation to be had kind of offline, between yourself or staff or whoever it is, then I think you would agree that if I'm anything, I'm usually honest.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's, something that we, not just myself, but also probably every college coach, around, that's, something that we're thankful for, because again, you're just trying to figure out as much information about that prospect as you possibly can. And you're trying to find out what their normal game is, their average game. And so, obviously if you guys are going to games and the kids, incredibly inconsistent, if you're, following along and all of that stuff, it helps you understand the expectations that you may not want to put on the kid early on in his career. Because you might see that kid, really play incredibly well one day. And that might be, I've seen too many times where that college coach anticipates, hey man, that's who he is and what he is. And that, he might just be chasing consistency early on. And I think if you as a coach can kind of, understand that and understand the patience behind that and allow that guy to fail without, being incredibly harsh on the kid, I think they have a chance to kind of progress and develop over time. But I think if you get in there and you're like, okay, this guy's going to come in, he's going to make an immediate impact. I saw him, these 2 times and he was incredibly good. Because we've all been around that kid that maybe the pitcher that doesn't have any command, but has really, really good stuff. And you go see him and that dude's lights out and you're like, man, this guy is unbelievable. I mean, I especially did it early on in my career of like, okay, let me go see him. This big, tall guy that throws really hard and all that stuff. Oh, he throws strikes. And then I think I'm getting a Friday night guy right away. And it might just be a little unfair for that kid. You might be, a Friday night guy right away, like a Josh Winder, but you might have to be a little bit more patient and all of that stuff throughout the course and allow him to fail and make sure that you're, continuing to coach him and continuing to allow him to work to become more consistent as he kind of moves forward. But yeah, I mean, and anytime you get 100% the real information behind what's going on, that's obviously super beneficial for both parties, for the colleges as well as obviously I think for the kid deep down, because you can, not put too much pressure on them or anything like that. So yeah.
Well, and I think it may not seem like that to a player or to a family at that time when people are when coaches are getting accurate information that may not always be the most beneficial in terms of a player's recruitment from a personal standpoint, but it may be beneficial for their recruitment and for kind of their status of where they may go or where they may end up in the long term. Now, you've been pretty transparent with me in the past about unsigned senior games. When you were with Coach Hayden, you recruited that event kind of pretty much every year. I remember, I think it was my first year working unsigned senior games, which is always right after Future games, and that was our last year at Grand Park. We were at the old Virginia Sports Complex.
Yeah.
And you came up to me and you were like, "Man, where were you at future games?" And I was like, "Oh, I had this family trip or whatever." And you're like, "Dude, you gotta go. You gotta go." But that was at Unsigned Senior Games. What is it about that event in particular that kind of sticks out for you and for your staff and for the program?
Man, the Unsigned Senior Games are unbelievable. I think that so many guys get overlooked, especially now, like we talked about earlier with the transfers and all that stuff. There's so many really good players out there, and I think too many times guys get caught up in this kid committed here or this kid committed there instead of running their own race and just being patient and understanding, hey, the team or the school that is evaluating and continuing to work and that really wants me to come play there is probably ultimately the best fit for the kid. But the Unsigned Senior Games, they always have really, really good players, that are just waiting to get picked up late. And so, it's been something that, that I've always went to, that we've always went to as a program. And so, it's been super beneficial. A lot of the guys that have come through that event have ended up being really productive players. And some of them have been our most productive players as freshmen at VMI. And so, it's one of those things where, you like to think that all the guys that you're landing early on in the recruiting process are guys that, you're, obviously offering earlier, but they may not be guys that, continue to work or continuing to develop and all that stuff. And so I think there's a lot to be said for the kid that maybe is being overlooked and, having to continue to, put together good outings throughout the summer or put together good games offensively throughout the summer, as opposed to, okay, maybe guys that, maybe take those games later in the summer or midsummer a little less, a little like take those games for granted. And so, the senior games are tremendous. Ton of good players there, a ton of players that can play at a ton of different programs around the state. And I think that's why you see such good turnouts college-wise and all that stuff at them. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think we had two guys at the event this past year that ended up committing to VMI. All right, 2 questions left. You played at VMI. You started your college coaching career at VMI, and you're now there, obviously, as the head of the program. Like, what keeps you in Lexington? What do you enjoy so much? Obviously, you've been there for quite some time as a student athlete and now as a coach. What are some things that really just jump out about Lexington that you love so much?
Yeah, I think the amount of support that not only I get, but the baseball program here gets. We have a tremendous support system administratively that are consistently looking out for me. And believe it or not, there's times when I'm quite a handful to manage and all that stuff. So that's something that I'm super appreciative of. And then also, I just think this is a tremendous place to, have a family, grow up and all that stuff. So the area, we love the area. My wife and it is in administration, school system wise here. So again, it's one of those things where, it's something that, it's relatively close to home for us and all of that. So again, it's about 2 hours from Prince George and all of that. So, yeah.
I have a hard time believing, Coach Roberts, that they have a hard time keeping you straight. Coach is a pretty low key, laid back guy for the most part. I'm sure I'm sure some players and everybody would disagree that there's some times, but Coach is a pretty low key, laid back guy. At least when I see him, which that may make sense because it's just out on the road watching players, so it's not
Oh,
too
yeah.
much to get tuned up about.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Loving to watch guys, man. That's awesome. I mean, again, it's one of those things where, like you said, man, son of a high school coach, always get back to that. Like, this is what I grew up watching. I grew up, watching Prince George baseball and hoping to be some of those guys. And then, watching Dinwiddie and the Mike Mallorys just dominate us. And so, again, it's one of those things where, all I've ever wanted to do was be a, baseball player. And then when that's over, all I wanted to do is coach. And so, watching high school baseball and watching travel baseball is just something that I've always loved. So, yeah.
all right, now last one. This one's kind of going to blindside you a little bit. Now, give me the top 3 players you ever played with or against. Doesn't matter college or professionally. I wasn't gonna say like top 3 players you ever coached, because that's just like that's a tough one to corner with all you guys. But top 3 you ever played with or against.
Top 3 played with or against. I'd probably say probably the top guy. I thought this guy was incredible, like from a height, weight, athleticism piece. Carlos Correa was probably the best guy that I ever saw at shortstop. I got to play with Matt Olson for a number of years, minor league wise. Who's with the Braves now. He got drafted by the Oakland A's. He was just super consistent in terms of, day-to-day work and all that stuff. He's got to be up there. I'm trying to think who the best arm that I ever. There was. I'll give you a guy I've coached, or I guess you say coach or played with or coached.
You can use a guy you coached against if you want to.
There was a guy from Mercer my first year, Robert Broom, who was a subby righty that was unbelievable. He was like 90 to 94 subby and ended up going in he was a top 10 rounder. He was unbelievable. He's the best college arm I've ever seen. All he did was throw strikes and he threw really hard. So yeah, I mean, I know that's not a great name for you. But I mean, I got to play with Manny Ramirez for a number of, for like 2 months. My first spring training, like after the spring training. So yeah, that was really cool to kind of go through.
Now, did Mike, was it you or Mike, or did both of y'all play with or against Manny, or was it just you?
I got to play with him. He was like on our team or whatever. But yeah, because at the time he was with the Oakland A's. He was serving a suspension. I was in extended spring training. So yeah, we got to, I got to watch his work ethic and all that stuff. That's something that, had an impact on me, man. That guy came in, worked incredibly hard each and every day, got there first. He was a lot, maybe different than maybe what I thought he was, when I was watching him on TV. So, yeah.
I feel like it was a story. I don't know if you were telling me or someone that you had told or something like that about how he kind of set arms up from at bat to at bat. And we don't advise this, but maybe would flush an at bat to get to get a pitch in the next one and then just absolutely demolish it. Yeah.
Well, I guess when you're as good as he is, you can kind of pick and choose, but when you're not, you just got to get what you get. So I wouldn't advise, punting a pitch or an at bat, but if you're as talented as I was, but you got to get them while you can. So yeah. But yeah, if you're that talented, yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, he was, one of the nicest guys and one of the hardest workers I've been around. That's for sure. But yeah, I mean, Carlos Correa, unbelievable athleticism. I felt like anytime we hit a ball, remotely to his left or right, he was gonna make the play. Absolute cannon for an arm. Matt Olson, just day-to-day work, grind it out type guy. And then, Broom was probably the best, guy I've coached against, like in terms of production-based stuff. But, obviously you can throw Manny Ramirez in there and all that. So, yeah.
It's a hot take. We took Matt Broom over Manny Ramirez today.
Robert Broom. Yeah.
Oh, Robert Broom, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, that is. Yeah. I mean, but yeah. So,
but 1994 subby, that's a tough.
Yeah, this guy was unbelievable. I mean, he had our team so mentally defeated. I feel like I felt like, because he was a closer for them, and I feel like our guys, if we didn't have the lead by the fifth inning, they were like, oh, they're gonna bring him in, and it's a wrap. So, yeah, I mean, he was unbelievable. I mean, I'm telling you, they had a fourth-round arm, Austin Cox, that same year, and we were 10 times more worried about the subby reliever than the left-handed arm. Maybe he was a fourth rounder. Yeah, I mean, he was unbelievable. So, yeah.
Well, good stuff, Coach. I appreciate your time. Appreciate everything, our relationship, everything that you do. And best of luck this spring to the VMI program.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on. You guys do a tremendous job promoting high school and colleges around the state and all that. And so, again, you guys do it the right way and all of that. So, yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks, Coach.
Yep. See ya.